Everybody engaged here tonight inside the blue line.
Along the wall. Centering pass off a skate. Long ahead this goes. Breakaway. Going in. Byro. Scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey. We're going to play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot and a goal. And it's his first goal of the season. Loving out of the air. Wow. Going in. 1, 2.
Welcome back to the Daily Hockey Reaction Show. Milan-Cortina presented to you by Fortune Tires. I think Jeremy Swayman might need corrective lenses, just like the guy that's sitting across from me today, Chris Peters. And we are here to break down the hockey games for you on Valentine's Day. Chris, what a special day. You and me together.
I know. It's the only place I would want to be. And I'll tell you what, if, hopefully I can lend these over to Jeremy Swayman after giving up what may have been the worst goal since Tommy Salo gave up that awful one. What is it? The Belarus a few many moons ago. So not a great day for Jeremy Swayman, but good enough for Team USA. They did win 6-3 today, Babs, and that is
they won.
Good news.
They won 6-3.
Well, they won.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah,
you won a game, but it's like you lost. You're supposed to beat Denmark 9-0. Denmark kind of made you guys look a little soft at points. Truly kind of embarrassing. It's like one of those games where like halfway through you go, they're going to load up now. Like it's going to be the other way. But it was already like, it wasn't like Italy hanging in there. Like Denmark was just straight up beating you.
Yeah. I mean, like that was the thing is like US had to come back. You know, they had to bounce back from multiple deficits here in the game. And I mean, I think that the margin of victory matters too, because goal differential, you're chasing Canada. I mean, like it was kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good news is that you won by multiple goals. The bad news is you didn't look great doing it. You had a team that was really competitive. And at times they also looked a little more physical.
Oh, look at this beautiful picture right here. Beautiful picture. Austin Matthews sad. The Danes happy. And then it just goes to just a terrible, every celebration they seem to photograph is always a guy's mouth just agape, just and it doesn't really justify like what happened. That doesn't look like a guy scoring. That looks like he saw something horrible happen in front of him.
Yeah, but it was a good goal, and thankfully it was, because at that point for Team USA, Brady Tkachuk had to step up and play, kind of save the day again, and it happened multiple times. Here's the good news. Jeremy Swayman, that's not not a great start, but he's also not your number one goalie. They did like what I was worried about was you've got Connor Hellebuck on the bench, so you've got Connor Hellebuck on the bench who has to probably play Germany tomorrow, because I'm guessing that those are the guys that you decided to ride with. And Hellebuck doesn't, you don't want to put him into the game against Denmark. You don't want him to play back-to-back heading into the medal round. So you basically have Swayman have to eat it. And it makes me wonder if maybe Jake Ottinger should have been on the bench for this one and how quick the hook would have been had he been there. Because I'm telling you right now, if you see a goal go in from just beyond the red line clean, as that one did, and yes, the boards are dark, we get it, all that stuff, it's okay. It's still from 50 feet away and just not, or more, and you're 100 feet away. Geez, you can't let that happen. And then he also had a bad one at the end of the second period. So it was really just a tough overall game for the US. I don't think that you can walk away from that feeling happy or confident, but it is what it is. And now you move on. But still, to me, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. And again, the good news is you won. Now they play Germany tomorrow, and that has implications. Canada has a +2 advantage on the goal differential when it comes to, who gets the number one overall seed. That's how it will be determined. So USA basically win and they get the bye automatically, but win big and you have a chance to be first overall. And we'll talk about it later, but the way that things shook out earlier in the day, we talked about yesterday how important the Slovakia-Sweden game was. Well, it turned out to be really important all the way to the very end. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but
we shall.
Now for Team USA, there it is. And hey, what a game that was. I can't wait to talk about that, because how many times have you seen a team win 5-3 and be like, we actually lost the game somehow?
I think it might have happened maybe in another
game. It kind of feels like, The U.S. probably feels the same way. You're right. Okay, whatever, fine. But yeah, but I'll tell you what, this was an interesting game. It was a frustrating game, and still USA dominated the shot counter. They were the better team, but when you see a 3-goal win over Denmark and how hard Denmark played in that game, and that they were pushing you around a little bit at times, not the confidence booster you were looking for.
Do you think the turning point was the assist the USA got off of the linesman's skate, and that was the real difference maker for them?
I didn't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. These corrective lenses don't see those things.
Yeah, now that is Jamie Swayman. He doesn't see a lot of things. However, his at one point highlighted here in this lovely picture array we have, his defensemen all standing around him at one point, just about to pop here in 2 seconds. This isn't a good look where you're just hanging out, I guess. Didn't love seeing that out of them because that goal happened because they weren't vigilant. But other teams, and we'll speak about it later today, weren't vigilant in front of their net as well. So we're seeing some garbage goals. Also, we're going to have a bit of an ice update because the goal surface in several places is starting to look a little bit rough. And you get the paint just seems to be disappearing. Maybe it's because they're playing so often on this surface, Chris. But USA pulls off a win. Mads Søgaard started to lose his net. He actually looked awkward off of the start. Makes you wonder, was he 100% going into this? He ends up having to leave the game anyways after stretching out on an unbelievable save against Tkachuk.
Incredible.
We also saw that with the Italy game too, where they had to make a last-minute third period switch, which is not ideal. They did that yesterday. So an unfortunate result. There were some goals. You look at them, especially the later ones. The Danish kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit in the net, but they did bully the United States, which makes me wonder why the U.S. was coming in so flat to that game. Did they just think that they were going to walk all over them, or were they distracted by other things? Who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because there's a lot of things that have happened here and things that we have seen throughout the first little bit of this tournament. One of the things that was brought up to me was Team USA after the game. So they have been playing the latest possible game. It's pretty late over there. I think it's like, closer to 9:00, in Italy when they're actually playing the game PM. And they didn't even get back after their first game. They didn't get back to their hotel until 1:15. And that was just because of just doing all the media, doing all the other stuff. It takes them forever to get out of the rink. And so they didn't practice on their
playing
day
the
off.
world's smallest violin right now.
Well, no, but I'm just saying this is the thing you have to think about. They didn't have time to practice, so they did their morning skate today and had a full team practice on top of that. And it's not to make excuses. It's like the logistics, you have to adjust to that now. So these guys are obviously playing in a situation that is different than what they're used to, but you got to adjust. You got to find a way. Not making excuses for what we saw today, but you look at some of those different things that are absolutely factors in terms of how you're going to play. So it's going to be really interesting to see where things go from here. But USA has to re-rack, get right back after it against Germany tomorrow, and they're going to have to play a heck of a lot better because Germany's got Leon Draisaitl. They've got JJ Peterka. They've got Tim Stützle. They've got guys that can hurt you if you don't have your A game. And, of course, USA probably goes back to Connor Hellebuck tomorrow as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. Ottinger should have been the backup. I don't think there's any question of that in this case. Germany is a team that you can't take penalties with. So if you're giving Germans the power play, they've got an NHL high-caliber power play that they can strike on. So the United States has to play very smart in their game tomorrow to avoid those situations because you don't want Leon Draisaitl trying to snipe on you. However, Germany, wow. A little surprise this morning for us as well. So we talked about, who's going to be the best of the worst. They must have heard that because there's a lot of countries trying to make sure that they can win said title. So I don't know who's going to win it at this point, but Chris, it's getting a little more competitive as we go on, unless you're Italy and then it doesn't.
Yeah. And I think if you're Team USA getting an angry German team after losing to Latvia, which we'll talk a little bit later, that is not an ideal situation. I think Leon Draisaitl will be coming out pretty fired up.
Yes, I think he will be too. Angry Germans tomorrow for them. Canada is going to have France. We'll break those games all down later on. But after the break, we will talk about one of the greatest hockey games we've seen in a very long time. And today's show is brought to you by Fortune Tires. Fortune Tires on FloHockey. Whether driving to the rink or cross country, find a retailer near you at FortuneTireUSA.com, and we'll be right back in a few.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression. Safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
We're back from the break, Chris, and we have to talk about Slovakia, Sweden. Wow.
Unreal game. Huge implications. The question was who would get the bye, and all three teams at the top of that lineup were in the hunt in that group, and that is Group B of the tournament. So Slovakia, basically, if Sweden wins by 3, they win the group. If Slovakia is able to lose by 2, they still win the group. And wouldn't you know what happened at the very end of that game? Dalibor Dvorsky scores to make it 5-3. Slovakia loses 5-3 but wins. And that is incredible. And there was a ton of controversy in this game, Babs.
Yeah,
there were incredible goals. There were great plays. Sweden looked good, not amazing, but they looked good. And Jacob Markstrom had his moments in the game. This was what you like when you watch the Olympics. You want to see those games where the goal differential, all those different things, every little bit matters. That was really exciting. And if you woke up early enough, you were treated to an incredible game.
Yeah, Sweden's first goal is definitely an example of driving to the net and playing until the whistle. The Slovakian players let up and then a goal went in. And I think that's going to be a frustration point, probably highlighted by the coaching staff. But it was also something that I said before. We saw it in the United States game as well, where defensemen were just kind of standing there. You have to drive the net. If the whistle doesn't go, keep trying to go for it, right? So I know people are worried about trying to drive the net too hard because they are protective in the blue. But if the puck is loose, maybe you got to just keep fighting for it. So we saw that with Sweden's first goal. The Slafkovsky situation, man, he's really turning the heat up, which will be good. He'll be going back to Montreal on a bit of a heater. But like you said, Sweden won, sort of. Like, it's an asterisk beside it, which is absurd because the goal difference is going to matter so much because Slovakia grabbed a wrench and then just beat everybody with it in this tournament thus far.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's so amazing that Slovakia is, they were kind of overlooked, and here they are with the bye. And now you have the bye for getting that late goal from Dalibor Dvorsky, who played for the Springfield Thunderbirds in the AHL last year, has been playing with the St. Louis Blues this year, and what a bright future that young man has. But the thing that kind of has bothered me about Sweden is they have so many lulls in their game that, at some point you start looking, these guys are high-end NHL players, but I also have looked at, do they have the right coaching right now? That's been a question on my mind. So they win the game 5-3, and you say, okay, that's great. But obviously, everybody on the bench had to know what was at stake. And it's really interesting that most of these countries that have, they're coached by, people that are part of their country. Sweden doesn't have an NHL head coach. Finland doesn't have an NHL head coach, but they have all NHL players. And it's not to say that you have to be an NHL coach to be able to lead an NHL team. I think Jukka Jalonen, who is now coaching the Italian team, but was Finland's national team coach for many years, you figure that he would have, he got through to that team. I don't know that that's necessarily happened. There was reports out of Finland that there was actually some talk of Paul Maurice taking over their team.
Yes.
There were no such reports about Sweden. Sam Hallam has been their national team head coach. His full-time job is the head coach of the national team. And so he will go coach in the Swiss NLA next year. But you have to wonder, are these guys being put in the positions to succeed? And now the other interesting element is, if Sweden, because they don't get the bye, there is a very realistic chance they're playing one of USA or Canada in the quarterfinals. That's not where you want to be. So again, it kind of goes back. I wonder about the coaching a little bit. I wonder about if they're, because I thought Sweden has underwhelmed in this tournament in such a way that if it is USA or Canada, I would definitely be looking at those North American teams to be the difference makers. But man, I'm telling you, Babs, that just something hasn't felt right about this Swedish team so far. And you wonder what's ailing them right now.
Yeah, and the Swedish team, though, one thing that could go in their favor is the way they can play can be the absolute kryptonite to the United States of America. So they get matched up. Sweden can just eat you alive. And if they are currently going in with a chip, and the United States is currently coming in a situation that's flat, now we'll have to see how the games tomorrow play out to see how the reactions are and what the vibe is. However, there is a chance, and because it was a problem at the beginning of the tournament, Chris, is people being sick or multiple players on a team being sick. So we have no idea if the flu bug's flying around, because at every single Olympics, that ends up playing a factor. It's unavoidable. But with all that being said, the play-in could result in some freak things happening, because we've been seeing freak things happen throughout the entire tournament. An unfortunate result for Team Italy, because we thought maybe they could play additional spoiler. But Team Latvia, you've got other countries trying to just fight alongside Slovakia to make this a competitive tournament, and it's just making things dramatically better. There's not a lot of throwaway games.
No, there isn't. I mean, really, yeah, Finland blowing the barn doors off of Italy today, 11-0. That was the only game really where we felt like this was just not the right, is a prize fight. And speaking of illness, Finland was missing 2 players from their game due to illness, including Anton Lundell, who starred for them in the win over Sweden, and Oliver Kapanen, who was unavailable. And apparently those two are rooming together. So that's a bad sign for Finland as they head into this next phase. And they have to be feeling like they won 11-0 and it didn't matter because of the results. Losing to Slovakia on the first day of the tournament sunk them, and beating Sweden didn't even matter in the end. So, I mean, it did to some degree, but either way,
in a different sense.
you're just, but like the fact is, you got ahead of Sweden now third in their group. So it matters in that way, I suppose. But really beyond that, I mean, so it's been a weird tournament. It's a weird thing that you kind of have to work out. But getting back to Slovakia, they won bronze the last tournament. Now Juraj Slafkovský has 10 career goals. By the way, what a bullet from him for their first goal of the game.
He had that one locked up.
Player. And he assisted that. He had the shot that went through Markstrom that Dvorsky put in too. And you mentioned it. He's going back to Montreal with a ton of confidence. But right now, he's got Slovakia believing that they can beat anybody. And that is a very dangerous team all of the sudden in the quarterfinals. One win gets you into being able to play for a medal. And that team is going to be going as hard as any. But there's still a lot of hockey to be played.
Yeah, lots of hockey to be played. And there's other factors that can fall into things like tomorrow's games because we've seen unfortunate player injuries. Now, we did get an update out of the game from Tom Wilson having that little incident with Fiala. An unfortunate result. However, he is having surgery in Italy, so that's how serious that one was. We will see what the complications with that, with the NHL owners wanting to send their players back to the Olympics again will be. But sad news there. He will not be playing the remainder of the season in the NHL. So the Los Angeles Kings will be looking maybe to make another move after acquiring Panarin. There's a lot at play here, Chris, with that.
Yeah, no question. I mean, like a lot of GMs are going to be having these conversations. It's almost like an extended trade deadline time right now because you've got a time. You can't make deals. You can't make deals right now, but you can start talking about them. And, it's unfortunate, the injury, but now, Ken Holland has a little bit of time to adjust. And, I mean, there's just really no replacing Kevin Fiala in their lineup. And I think if you're Switzerland, how do you replace him from there? I mean, you don't get to add players after the fact. Once your team is registered, that's it. So you don't have the ability to bring in an extra. So, that injury, it obviously affects Sweden or Switzerland in the immediate future and obviously the LA Kings for the rest of the season. So definitely unfortunate, but that is the risk that I think all the players are willing to take in order to play in this tournament.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of feedback online. When you watch that injury happen and the way that everybody else responded, especially all the players, none of them wanted to see that, and it was clearly not Tom Wilson's fault. But we saw a lot of big hits. This has been an aggressive Olympics. This is not international hockey the way you would see guys laying off and it being a little less aggressive. Because of the small ice, it's made it incredibly aggressive. But after the break, we have several other games we have to break down. What a beautiful photo this one is. And I want to mention once again, Fortune Tires on FloHockey, the official tire of the AHL. Find your nearest retailer, guys, at fortunetireusa.com. And we're going to be back to give you way more breakdowns.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself. And you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
everyone's surprised, we're back from the break because we have so many more games we have to break down. And unfortunately, we only have so much time to do so. So we will start off immediately with Canada. A win, but we expected a win. And Marie-Philippe Poulin jumping back in.
Jumping back in and in a major way, making a major impact for Canada, gets a goal, ties the record. And on top of that, just getting her back on the ice and seeing her play, I said it yesterday. I was like, don't even play her in the quarterfinals. Let her get back in the semifinal. But that's not Captain Clutch's style. That's not how she's going to do things. And so 5-1 is the final. That sets up the semifinal against Switzerland. And now, Canada and the U.S. still on that collision course for the gold medal game. We saw the Canadian team. It wasn't always the prettiest game. It wasn't always great. But, they got a couple of bounces, and then on top of that, they just were the better team, as we fully expect them to be against Germany. And yeah, I mean, I think you got to give a ton of credit to Marie-Philippe Poulin for coming back and being a big part of that, and the emotional boost that gives Team Canada as well.
Yeah, emotional boost because she's a bit of a leader, as some might describe her as. She's been there a long time too, so she doesn't get flustered. This is a strong force, and it's not just that, like with this team, just in hockey in general, Marie-Philippe Poulin commands a lot of respect. Seeing her in the summer at the Living Susu 3-on-3 league that plays in Montreal that Zach Fucali runs. She skates all summer long, and she's playing games in that 3-on-3 league. And it's not like it's, hey, we're skating. That group that she brings in there goes hard. And those women will say and do whatever she wants them to because she's that type of leader. So it's a valuable person. I do have to switch topics, though, as we gear up, and we'll have a bigger breakdown of the women's side once we get into some of those bigger games. But Finland beats the brakes off of Italy. An absurd 11-0 win. A disappointment in some ways because Italy had been playing the annoyance spoiler. But how in the tournament, you're going to get tired. Things will happen. And in the group there, coaches most likely were screaming at their guys to get ready and locked in for Team Italy. So they weren't able to frustrate them. It was the other way around, an 11-0 loss. It's not great.
No, not what you want to see if you're the host, but I think also for Finland, it probably was cathartic in terms of, the frustration of losing the first game, and you beat your biggest rival, and you don't really control your own destiny, but now you get a chance to, get your offense going. I mean, the passing between Rantanen and Aho, the different things that those guys were doing with the puck on their stick, it was a pretty remarkable game. Joel Kiviranta had a big day. Capo Kakko had a big day. Like all these players, and think about the confidence that guys are getting from those kinds of things. I mean, it was so clear that Finland came in and said, we are going to go and we are not going to stop. We are just going to keep it going. We are going to keep the pressure on, and that is what we're going to do. They did that. They did it effectively, and now they get a little bit of a rest. They'll go into the qualification round. They'll have a decent seeding for that. Could be a tough matchup, but they're going to be a little bit better for that. They just got to get healthy at this point because, as I mentioned, Anton Lundell, Oliver Kapanen both missed the game with an apparent illness. So that's not great. We know what happened to the women's team earlier in the tournament with norovirus. There's been no indication of what kind of illness is going on, but knowing that I have sick kids in this house right now, that's it can be really rough, on the whole group. So hopefully things get better, but an 11-0 score will certainly keep the spirits bright in the Finland locker room.
And to quote the classic Vine, they were roommates. But I got to move on to a team that is the most frustrating in many tournaments, and it's because the way they play. They don't play to win. They play to keep it close, and it's frustrating. And their counterattack is lethal. And that team is Latvia with a 4-3 win over Germany, deciding that, hey, we heard you guys mention us in the best of the worst. Well, how about this? Latvia secures a very competitive win purely based on taking advantage of turnovers, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they do, right? You talked about it there. And counterattack hockey frustrates players. It frustrates teams. It's not exactly all the most fun to watch. But when you have the skill disadvantage that you may feel. And even in that game against Germany, where the depth is probably closer, I think Latvia even has more NHL players. The depth is a little bit closer, but you got to have a little bit more. And on top of that, Artur Shilov's big day for him. Great job in net. Calder Cup MVP last year. Was on one of the most ridiculous AHL playoff runs I think we've ever seen last year. I got to see him a couple of times. You're saying, oh, this is a guy that's going to do something. He comes in, makes a big game, or has a big game for Latvia. I think that there's a lot to like about what they do. For me though, like now Latvia, they can beat Denmark, put themselves in a better position, potentially finish second in the group. And really, if Germany finds a way to beat the U.S., it creates a fun three-way tie situation, which USA, I think, would still win the tiebreaker. So it doesn't really matter that much. But either way, you've got a lot of really intriguing storylines to follow. And Latvia is one of them, because that's one of those scrappy teams that I think can be a really tough out.
Yeah, and Chris, remind me, where would you be able to watch the Calder Cup?
Yeah, of course. On FloHockey, we're going to have the Calder Cup playoffs coming up. They're right around the corner.
It's almost here.
And you think about there's other guys, and you know what? Actually, a guy who's in the AHL right now with the Providence Bruins, Dan Zlok-Melish. He had a big game today. He was a big factor. We'll probably bring him up a little bit later in the show too. So there's a lot to like about the American Hockey League, and certainly while you're waiting, the NHL is off. So what are you doing? You can watch games right now on FloHockey. Well, keep it here with us for now.
Yes,
and then
don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Stay here.
Watch a few more games. Yeah,
it is Valentine's Day. You wouldn't change the channel on Valentine's Day, would you?
Not on us.
Not on us.
Not
no.
on these faces.
No, not on. I mean, maybe on these faces, Chris. Yes, it's interesting to see with Latvia because they play so methodical. But this group, again, World Championships, everyone shows up. If you're not in the NHL playoffs, you better be here. And then in terms of like the roster, we talked about this. They only had one player who's currently playing in the Latvian league. Everyone else plays everywhere else. So it is a tougher task for them in comparison to, say, you look at a team like the Swiss, where most of the roster is in the Swiss National League. The rest of the guys are in the NHL. These guys are playing against each other, and they know each other for the most part. This Latvian chemistry is harder to obtain simply because everyone plays other places. Yet they still have it.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and I think you got to give them a lot of credit. You got to give their coaching staff credit, and I think you also have to give the players credit for buying in too. I mean, a lot of these guys, maybe they did play at the World Championships, but like last year, Shilovs, he didn't play in the World Championship. He was too busy in the Calder Cup playoffs, and then you have guys like Belinsky's and others that were busy in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they've got, they've found a way, and I think that they just play such a great brand. Also want to shout out once again, draft eligible defenseman Albert Smits, another big performance today, had an assist, looked really good. So there's a lot to like about that Latvia team. There's been a lot to watch, and man, they're going to be a tough out for whoever has to face them.
No, and they are, and it's a thing where they don't give up either until it gets a blowout. So if you're up by 3, they're still fighting, and it's one of those things you see out of other countries where they will back off, and then just starts to become one of those things. The Latvians seem to have a lot more fight, and I'm a Canadian bringing that up, and I was at that World Juniors game where they beat Canada. That was a depressing, rough crowd. First game I brought my dad to for the World Juniors ever, him and I, and it was a loss. And my dad goes, "Hey, great game you picked for us." It's just ironic, but you got to see a moment in history too. And
I was there too, and I thought
you and I were in the same room together. It's crazy.
We were,
yes,
before we even started working together.
Yes,
we're not right now.
No, we aren't. If anybody didn't notice, there's a dramatic difference between the two backgrounds here. He's in the United States, and I am in Canada. But that brings us to a little preview of what we have coming up next with another beautiful photo of a player making a, well, frankly funny face here in Nathan MacKinnon. But it's going to be a big breakdown because there's a lot of pieces. It's a puzzle that we're trying to put together to explain to you what might happen down the line with this tournament as everybody tries to end up being seeded, Chris. But as always, guys, Fortune Tires, they are the official tire of the AHL, and they're built for every drive in every single season. Find yours at FortuneTireUSA.com. And yeah, after the break, we're going to give you guys an inside look at what will happen tomorrow and the implications for those following days. But we will see you guys right after the break.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
All right, and just like that, we're back. And I've been inspired by the players who are pushing their visor all the way up because the guys at the Olympics have to wear visors. One of those interesting rules you may not have heard about. But yes, visors and neck guards are all required at the games, Chris.
Yeah, safety first.
Of course.
Yeah, you gotta look at you with your visor on. Though.
Yes, and we're going to safely transition to the Fortune 4, our top 4 players of the day. These guys were the best performers, guys, and women actually here too. But Chris, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, well, I got to start it off with Brady Tkachuk. I call him the emotional support winger of the United States of America. He is the guy that seems to come through in the clutch and finds a way to make the big play, make the big goal, score the big goal, and that is what he did once again today. He is always around it. It seems like that is going to be a factor for the U.S. as we go forward. So Brady Tkachuk, undoubtedly one of the top performers here for Team USA so far through 2 games. Going back to Canada for my next Fortune 4, and that is, of course, Marie-Philippe Poulin, the captain of Team Canada. She came back, scored a goal, tied the Olympics record, made a little history, and pushed her team into the semifinal. They're playing better. They have her in the mix. As long as she stays healthy, they still feel like they should have a chance, and they do. And that is where we're going to go. So we're getting into that collision course with Team USA, and Marie-Philippe Poulin is back in the mix.
So after my costume change, I got to go with Capo Caco. He is playing unbelievable. Kind of like the way they thought he'd play in the NHL when they drafted him, but it didn't work out. But the product over there was fantastic out of him. He had 2 goals and an assist in that 11-0 game. So yes, maybe they are garbage time points, but they are points nonetheless. And those points, they do matter. So credit to him. And then we have to go over to Latvia. Dan's Lock Melish. Melish? I don't know. Tough to say. Listen to the Olympics and pronunciation a couple times. Still probably didn't get it. But he racks 2 goals, and he's the reason his team won. So he gets into the fortune for today.
Yeah, I mean, he is a really good player. I've liked him for a long time. I've been watching him, doing all the draft coverage that I do and seeing him. And now he plays for the Providence Bruins. He's in the Bruins system. I think if you're a Boston Bruins fan, you are going to love the way that he plays. You're already probably familiar with it, watching the Providence Bruins on FloHockey like a good Bruins fan should. But yeah, now, Babs, we got a lot to talk about because
yes, we do.
I said it yesterday. I was told there would be no math when I got into media, and unfortunately, there is so much math. And there's a lot to figure out here because the spots in the quarterfinals, with the exception of Slovakia being in, that is locked in, they're still up for grabs. And I wanted to try to explain a little bit, but basically here's the gist. This is the easiest and simplest way I can put it, okay? So we've got Canada. They play France tomorrow. France, not exactly known for being a super strong team, but they've been tough to play against here. I don't think that's going to be the case against Canada. Canada currently has a +9 goal differential. They're 2 ahead of Team USA. If they beat France badly enough, and we think that they will more than likely be the number 1 overall seed, giving them the lowest possible seed to face in the quarterfinals. They get the bye, they get the rest, and all that other stuff. Team USA, if they beat Germany tomorrow, they would have to beat them by quite a lot to keep ahead of Canada because the first tiebreaker among teams that haven't played each other is goal differential. And so that would be Team USA. So win and you're in, you get the bye, but there's a good chance that you end up playing Sweden, who finished 3rd in their group. So that's where things get a little bit wonky. And then you still have opportunities if you are other teams here in this tournament. And so I'm really fascinated to see what happens once we get to the next phase of this tournament, because I think all of these teams have a lot to prove. But you look at those top teams and everybody else, I mean, we'd have to continue to do all these different things. Basically, there are 4 games tomorrow. They all matter in terms of what is going to happen. If you don't get the bye, you have to play in the qualification round to get into the quarterfinals. So you have to play an additional game just to get into the quarterfinals. So that is a tough place to be. That's not where you want to be. But if you're one of the big teams, you want to be in the best possible position to face the lowest possible team. Really, at this point, the only teams that don't really strike fear into the heart of many of these teams is probably Italy and France. But as we have seen, they're not the easiest to play against.
No, and the French are I think we can award the worst of the worst to the French team, unfortunately, at this point, because of how their games have gone. Even given Italy's 11-0 loss today, they actually caused frustration in their previous games. And they're also dealing with injuries now, too. And they've had to use different goaltenders in all of their games as a result of injury or just the peppering that has occurred. So don't love to see that, but we will award the worst of the worst to Team France. At least I'm deciding that on your behalf, Chris. But the best of the worst.
Italy made a case today, but still. Well, I'll say that. And I just wish it was kind of easy. Like the women's setup is a lot easier. It's a little bit more of the traditional World Championship style, which this kind of is too. It's just condensed because the Men's World Championship takes like 3 weeks in the spring.
Awesome. And it's awesome though.
I do love it. I mean, I do love it. USA winning that tournament, I never thought I would actually see, and we saw that last year. But in the women's side too, so now you're into the semifinal stage. Canada will play Switzerland, who shut out Finland today, 1-0 in their quarterfinal to advance. So Finland will finish without a medal. Switzerland still very much in the hunt for a medal. And then USA plays Sweden in the other semifinal, and those games are still a couple of days away. We'll have those games on Monday, and we will be talking about them in depth right here on this show. But it just reminds me that I wish that it was a little bit easier for us to break all this down on the men's side. So watch the standings, watch the points, watch the goal differential. All of it matters. I think you're going to see a lot of very motivated teams and high-scoring games tomorrow.
Yeah, it's funny because I made a video earlier this year talking about how many games could you possibly play in the span of a year as an NHL player. And one thing that was brought up is in the Olympics, you can play 6 or 7 different games because you're able to play in that qualification round. Now, it's unlikely at the Olympics to play in the qualification round and then go on to win your gold medal. Very unrealistic to be able to pull off the 7. But you can end up playing a lot of games, especially with how long the World Championships takes as well, because we addressed that. It takes several weeks, and there's way more games that happen with that. I just wish with this Olympic setup that it could be more spread out like those World Championships are, with a little bit more rest being applied. I think we'd see some better games. I know they're trying to rush the NHL players back into action and get them home, but it's a smaller percentage of the league. You could just give them another 2 days here and they'll recover and you'll be able to get back to your games. That's actually not going to screw your schedule up too much, but they're rushing. I hate the back-to-back games. It's just the guys aren't their best.
Right. Yeah. It would definitely be nice to have a little bit more spread out. The women's tournament basically spans the entire Olympics. They start before the opening ceremonies and they'll end, towards the end of this week, similar to the men. And so, the gold medal game for them is on the 19th. So there is actually going to be 3 days between the semifinal and the gold medal game. So it's a much better setup. It allows those players to play much more close to the peak. But again, I think the Olympic schedule, it's very tied to the way the NHL schedule, and that's the way it's going to be. But, I would love to see more games, more spread out, and certainly, these 3 groupings too. So you've got 12 teams on the men's side, you've got 8 on the women's side. So it's an interesting dynamic to see how they set it up. But in the end, I think, the fun part about it, Babs, is that tomorrow has huge implications, and today had huge implications, and we got that tremendous Sweden-Slovakia game. So it does create drama, but I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of things that, if we could spread it out a little bit and not condense the tournament a lot, it's probably better for health and safety. It's also probably better for viewing and everything else, because this is a lot of hockey, but I'm never going to complain.
And it'd probably also be better for the ice, and that can't go unstated. So like the Fortune Tire ice report, you're starting to see some wear, especially if you look at what's painted onto the ice. You're really starting to see look a little rough. If you look at any overhead shot, it doesn't look like what you're used to seeing in the NHL. Now, you can still see, yes, it's the blue, and that's where the goalie is supposed to be, but the ice is getting a little bit worn down, and you're seeing players having to make some adjustments at some points throughout the game because of just the quality of the ice. It's going to get a little choppy after the 3rd game of the day. It's a completely unavoidable situation.
Yeah, they might want to get some Fortune tires on the ice resurfacer over there, because that will help you in all seasons and all conditions. And this whole thing, Babs, for me, the ice situation, it's still miraculous that this tournament is happening at all, considering where we were just a few weeks ago with this. But we're getting towards the end. It's not going to improve a lot.
No.
And as we saw in that game between Sweden and Slovakia today, the millisecond, just the inches, there was a goal that was called back that very well could have potentially crossed the line. It was so close. It's about as close as you can get to not scoring. And you wonder how that would have impacted the game, and if that could have even knocked Sweden further back had it not. But yeah, keeping an eye on the ice surface is definitely on our minds now.
And we'll catch you guys after the break with a little bit more insight into what we can see for the rest of the tournament.
Everyone knows that standing still doesn't get you where you want to go. It's all about movement and progression, power, safety, innovation, expertise. On the road, off the road, and down the road. You have to expect more out of yourself, and you should expect more of the company who makes your tires. Getting you more miles, traction, and safety is why we get up in the morning. Let's drive forward. Expect more. Fortune Tires.
All right, so Canada, France tomorrow. That's going to be a game, and we're going to have to pay attention to it because Canada is going to have to run the score. I think we're in that situation. I'm going to knock on wood, do whatever other, superstitious things you need to do, but Canada should be lighting it up, Chris.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think that this is going to be, if I'm going to predict anything, I'm going to say it's probably somewhere along the lines of an 8-0 score. Something like that, maybe France will pop one in. We'll see, if are they going to stick with Binnington? What are you going to do with the goaltending situation here? I'm sure it's going to be Binnington, but either way, it's going to be really fascinating to watch. I think Canada is just going to open things up, and it's all about for them just continuing to keep the foot on the gas. It's how they played. We talked about it yesterday. They're the most committed team there. They're well coached. They've been well oiled. They've looked absolutely dialed in this tournament. The best looking team so far.
Yeah, no, they have been a well-oiled machine for sure. Benner most likely is going to have the reins. However, you have to address the fact that Logan Thompson, not too long ago, was playing at Brock University, a school that I attended at one point, and he had one season of U Sports hockey under his belt, and then started his war from the ECHL to the AHL to getting an NHL contract, and now starting a game for Team Canada at the Olympics. It just goes to show you the importance of watching hockey on FloHockey, because you can see those guys have their rise up through the ranks. He's probably one of the most impressive stories next to Scott Darling in terms of a goaltender who's had to go to war. Now, granted, Scott Darling started in the SPHL and worked his way up, but Logan Thompson has to get a big tip of the cap from us.
No question. I mean, yeah, and I'm glad you got to give him that praise. I mean, the fact that he's here, it wasn't on the Four Nations roster, but it is here now. Great for him and great for Canada as well. But there are some other big games we got coming up tomorrow, Babs. And, the Canada-France game, we don't expect that one to be close.
No.
Swiss-Czechia, however, has potential implications here. You've got, two teams that have played all right so far. They both have played and lost to Canada. But you've got Switzerland so far. They're even on their goal differential. Czechs are -2. Win that game, get a chance to be ahead and into the quarterfinals. There's a lot of things that either one of those teams can do. That game is in the early morning slot tomorrow. And then I'm really excited to see what happens in Denmark, Latvia, because all of a sudden Latvia has made their presence known in this tournament, and Denmark has to be playing a little bit angry, having lost both of their 2 games, now a -5 goal differential for them. But Latvia is feeling like, hey, we're in the driver's seat. We had one bad game. Now we got a chance to do something special. So, I mean, there's so much on the line still.
Yeah, there's a lot on the line. And like I said, it's a competition with some of these teams to prove something. And Latvia proved it. Now the Danish are probably looking to try and prove it, even though they had a lead against the United States for a decent amount of a game. Unfortunate. Tying back to that, because I wish I had brought it up then, I would have liked to see the Danish run a really, really defensively sound 1-3-1 in that situation and barely forecheck and just force the United States from it once they had that lead. When the game gets tied, you can go in and fight, but you're going to be able to counterattack off that 1-3-1. I think that would have been a smarter situation for the Danes to just play shutdown hockey. Hold on to the puck as long as possible. Cycle it. Try not to dump it into the corner too much because these corners are small and you're going against fantastic U.S. defensemen. But I think some of these teams, when they're the underdog, need to think about the trap and just get that Guy Boucher mind when he was in Tampa, and just don't
stop trying to make the trap happen. Stop doing it.
I mean,
you got to stop. We want to see wide open hockey. We want to see these best teams go. But you're right. In terms of, when you have a skill disadvantage, you got to do that. And we'll see what Germany does with the U.S. because I don't think Germany's coming just to show up and roll over tomorrow. I think that they are coming to play with something to prove. And when you have Leon Draisaitl at the top of your lineup, you have to feel like that gives you a chance. And we'll see if the goaltending holds up. Grubauer has been up and down. That's going to be important for them. But, Germany, they're an interesting team. They're a very interesting team that they got an early win over Denmark, which allows them to kind of be in this position. And I think they're going to come and give the U.S. a lot and maybe some trouble. But for me, if you're the United States, I think you need to see a lot more from your defensemen. Did not like how they looked against Denmark in this game, aside from, they were involved a bit in the scoring, but they need to play better there. You obviously need to have the goaltending sorted out. I'm sure it'll be Hellebuck, and that'll be sorted that way. But, boy, there's a lot on the line here, and I think the U.S. needs to really come back and have a much better effort after not so good one tonight.
Yeah, and we'll see Ottinger definitely be the backup in this situation in the event that they have to make a switch. Putting in Swayman will just be an absolute no for me, because if you have to put him in cold into a game, he's still going to be a little shaky. There's no busting out of what he went through. And also, I think they're going to have discussions with him. I think we will see potentially maybe goggles being applied so he can see a little bit better. He definitely needs the help, and it's unfortunate. Maybe the cat eye mask would allow him to see the puck a little bit better, but he went for it with his glove when it was going towards his blocker. A funny sight for everybody other than the fans of the American team to watch that game go on, but that's why we like Olympic hockey. You get to see some excitement. Chris, we'll be back tomorrow, and we will have a lot more we can talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right back here, 5:30 Central, 6:30 Eastern. You will not want to miss it. We are going to talk about all the day's games, and we'll have the qualification round set matchups to talk about as well.
Yeah, well, with that, we will see you after Canada beats the brakes off of France.
Crowd already engaged here tonight inside the blue line.
Along the wall. Centering pass off a skate. Long ahead this goes. Break play. Going in. Byro. Scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey. We're going to play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot on a goal. And gets his first goal of the season. Loving out of the air. Wow. Going in. 1, 2.
Crowd already engaged here tonight inside the blue line.
Along the wall. Centering pass off a skate. Long ahead this goes. Break play. Going in. Byro. Scores.
We'll play some hockey, eh? Hockey. We're going to play hockey today.
Yano for it. He'll wrap a shot on a goal. And gets his first goal of the